has the solver special. Is he just gonna blow up?
Hello. In the last video we analyzed a few hands from the early stages of the tournament, and today we're going to take a look at another phase, and that is play on the bubble. And this won't be your everyday bubble, because I chose 5 hands from the highest buy-in tournament in the latest Triton Poker Series in Jeju, where min cash was $249,000. In the first hand we see the Russian player opening the mystery hand from an early position, but I can tell you that he has 6-5 of clubs, so it will be easier to follow the hand. This is on the edge, but it's an okay open. He is still very deep, has nice fold equity, and he wants to have good board coverage against other big stacks. Fedor called king-queen off on the cutoff, and this is also fine play. Solver sometimes raises with it, but it's not a bad spot to play this hand in position against another big stack while keeping his dominated hands in. We see a very interesting flop that's equally good for both players, but in this kind of situation it's better for the cutoff because he has the advantage of position. With that in mind, Minko shouldn't c-bet too much. Solver does it only with around a quarter of range with a small sizing and is checking with the rest of it. Fedor with his top pair bet for 30% of the pot, and we can see that with this specific hand he can bet with any given sizing as well as check. On this board almost every hand in his range has either a pair or at least a gutshot draw, and only hands that missed completely are few suited aces and hands like king 6, king 8 and ace 10, and Solver uses them to bet as a bluff the most. The only hands that want to bet always for value are 2-pair combos and sets. Minko called, and this is okay. Against small sizing he should fold around a quarter of his range. He has more low-suited kings, all low-suited aces and even some low offsuit ones that miss the board completely and are very easy to fold. 6-5 suited with a gutshot, even without backdoor flush draw, are almost always calling, but it's worth to mention that they can check raise some portion of the time. Vladimir checked on the turn as he should with most of his range, but we can see that he can take the initiative with some hands, and 6-5 suited is pretty good candidate to do it for value. It unblocks all pairs and draws and is still a vulnerable hand. Solver balances it with some semi-bluffs with king 6 and ace 6 that have some equity with a straight draw and an overcard, but are awkward to play against another bet. Fedor checked his top pair and the second best kicker, and according to GTO this is the only play with his hand. On this turn he should start to polarize and bet either with very strong hands, rare overpairs, all 2 pairs, sets and straights, or bluffs. There are some top pair hands, but Solver prefers king jack and king 10 that both block the nuts and have some additional equity with their ability to improve to a straight. Most bluffs come from ace 6 and king 6 suited combos, and Solver uses very big sizing with the whole range, preferring to overbet the pot. After king on the river, Vladimir checked again. On this card Solver is using either smaller sizings or checks, and all very strong hands like straights and sets are mostly checking, so well played here. Fedor catched his second pair and has very easy value bet. Solver is mixing between all sizings, but using 50% of the pot most of the time, both with specific hand and the whole range. Minko waited for this bet and check-raised it with a massive sizing. This is a fine line with his hand. We can see that he can do it with all the sets and straights and shouldn't worry too much about Fedor having a better hand. He shouldn't have many high sets, because kings and queens mostly 3-bet preflop, jack 10 offsuits should be folded preflop, and jack 10 suited and lower sets are mostly betting on the turn, so having even a bottom set is almost always the best hand against the capped range of Fedor. The German player was in a really hard spot, where his top 2 pairs were just a bluff catcher. He is beaten by value range and beats only bluffs. Solver of course finds the perfect balance and turns some hands like 10-8 or queen-jack into a bluff, but I think against human players it's safe to assume that it isn't an overbluffed scenario. Fedor made the fold, and we can see that this is very close, but this specific combo is always folded by the solver, so very well played by Fedor. He doesn't have many better hands in vacuum, but in this specific spot it's better to call worse 2 pairs like king 9 or 8-7, because they lose to the value range anyway but unblock most common bluffs, so they have a little bit more equity. Second hand starts with a raise from Roman Hrabec in early position with ace-queen off. This is of course fine open, nothing to add here. Action folded to Daniel Dvores on the cutoff, who decided to 3-bet his ace-king. This is also an okay play, but we can see that the solver actually mixes actions with this hand and is calling with it a little bit more often than raising. Roman 4-bet all-in for more than 30 big blinds, and according to the solver this is a mistake. He will get called only by hands that crushes him, pocket queens, kings and aces, and ace-king, so to make this play profitable he must hope that Dvorez is overbluffing this spot by a lot, and I don't think that he is the player that will go crazy with 3-betting in this scenario. Roman should have a tight opening range in early position and is also known for playing pretty aggressive preflop. I've already covered many hands played by Daniel on this channel and his style is based on GTO, so I wouldn't recommend going out of line against him. If this wouldn't be played on the bubble, it would have been a different story. Roman should open a similar range and Dvorez should also 3-bet almost the same amount of hands, but what changes the most is the response of the player in early position against the raise. Instead of folding 2/3 of the opening range, this number goes down by half to 1/3 and ace-queen off is either calling or 4-betting. With ICM pressure on the bubble, the solver is almost never calling out of position and in GPV scenario it's the most common action. In the next hand we see Enrico Camosci jamming his pocket sixes from the small blind. He has around 40 big blinds against Greenwood, who has just a few big blinds less than him. This isn't a thing and the solver never jams in this spot. This is taking the concept of playing the bubble a little bit too far, and on these stacks it's not a very good play. Of course, it puts big pressure on big blind, who should fold a lot, but the problem is that when he calls, as he should with around 8% of hands, he has him crushed, because he will fold all pairs up to sixes and call with all better pairs. So most of the time when he gets called, he is left with just few big blinds and his chance of cashing the tournament drops by a lot. When we see what a solver would do in this scenario, we can see that there isn't much difference between ICM and GPV. Pocket sixes should mix between calling and raising. Another hand is similar to the one played by Roman Hrabec. This time it's Steven Chidwick with ace-queen off. He should open with around 15% of hands here. There is also the same player 3-betting here from 2 seats over. Daniel Dvorez has a mystery hand, but I'll tell you that he has pocket aces, and this hand should be raised almost 100% of the time. Action went back to Chidwick and he decided to call. We can see that solver is calling here with just 2% of range, and ace-queen off is jamming here almost always, with only 2% of calls. This spot is a little bit different than previous one for two main reasons. Dvorez should 3-bet more hands in this scenario, and also because Steven is shorter and still has good fold equity, his risk-reward ratio is much better. That's why solver always continues with ace-queen off, but it's not a great spot on the bubble by any means. On the flop, Chidwick checks and the solver doesn't like this play. He is out of position with low SPR, but he should have a big range advantage. He has some traps and also ace-jack suited is one of the most common hands in his range. Daniel bet for small sizing with his aces and this is an okay play, but overall he should check back a lot on this board with more than 2/3 of his range. He just has a lot of air with all his low suited aces and kings and his 3-betting range doesn't hit many top pairs. Against this very small c-bet, Chidwick called and this is fine. As we can see, he should continue with almost all of his range, mostly by calling, but it's worth to mention that he could also jam sometimes with ace-queen when he has ace of hearts. After 7 of hearts that opened flush draw, Steven led for less than 20% of the pot. Solver takes initiative on this turn only with 5% of range, and with this combo of ace-queen off it's actually the most common action, but solver just jams this hand with SPR less than 1. It's just awkward when we bet small and get raised, and this is what happened in the hand. Dvorez took some time and jammed his aces, and this is the best play with his hand. He stacks of hands that might not put more chips into the pot when fourth heart will come on the river, like ace-jack of spades, and if he folds out hands with single heart in opponent's hand, it's also a win for him. Chidwick somehow found a way to not bust in this hand and saved his 10 big blinds and his chances to cash in this tournament. Our last hand today is also a wild one. It starts with a raise from Biao Ding with around 40 big blinds and pocket queens. Samuel Muller in the next seat over has ace-5 suited and decided to 3-bet. This is a nice hand to put pressure on a shorter stack. Solver loves ace-5 so much that it even raises the offsuit variant about a quarter of the time. Action folds out to Wang Ye, who finds aces on his big blind, and you probably think, okay, this is a cooler, queens against aces on 40 big blinds effective. But it's not what happened in the hand. After this called 4-bet, Biao Ding took some time and folded his pocket queens. This is very impressive, and when we look at GTO ranges, this is actually a good fold. Solver likes to jam only with ace-king, kings and aces for value, and what is also interesting, his bluffs should come from some suited kings, not aces, because they block the same amount of value hands, but at the same time they unblock most common bluffs, as most 3-bet and 4-bet bluffs should come from low suited aces. Now action is on Samuel, and after a brief pause, he put his stack in the middle. This looks wild, but it's a GTO play. If he expects big blind to have enough bluffs, he should jam this hand 100% of the time. His value range is ace-king, kings and aces, and he should balance it with some low-suited aces as a bluff, and even if he doesn't want to jam all of them, ace-5 is just the best combo to do that, so huge respect for that play. This might look like a punt, but plays like this separate elite players from the rest. They just don't care if the play looks stupid or someone might think that this is a punt. They studied these scenarios and just know that when they have a good spot to bluff, they just don't miss it, even when there is a $250,000 min cash on the line. I hope you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe and see you next time. Bye!